February is where resolutions go to die quietly, unless you do something about it.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Fitz and Franson Show. I'm Fitz.
And I'm Franson.
And this is a show where we talk about leadership and business, growth, and what it actually takes to build something that lasts.
Yeah, without lying to yourself along the way.
Yeah, that's the part that really matters.
Yeah. Well, we blinked and all of a sudden it's January 2026. It's a new year and everyone is fired up. I mean, everyone. Everyone's got goals. But if we're being honest, this is actually the most dangerous time of the year.
Yeah, that's really true, Jay. It's because January has a tendency to, I would say to lie to people. It can make you feel productive without requiring you to really change anything.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And when we don't make those changes, what do we always see, Fitz?
Man, it's the dreaded quiet February failure. It's not a blow up or something like it's like a huge collapse or anything like that. It's just simply drifting back into those same old patterns, Jay. And it's done with those nicer goals that have been written on paper. There's no doubt about that. So if we're being honest with ourselves, though, whether it's personally or professionally, we've all been guilty of this. And I'm no different. I'll own this one for sure. I've had years where I've talked about growth and had some really big goals written out and subconsciously or even maybe secretly protected myself with the comfort. I looked busy as hell. I had a calendar that was beyond filled and packed with different meetings or different, events, but nothing actually different was happening.
Man, same here too. I've had years where I set aggressive goals, but didn't really adjust my standards. I wanted a different outcome without confronting the stuff I tolerated. And I got to say, one of the things I've noticed as I've really worked on myself in leadership, sometimes I'll hesitate to reply to an email or hesitate to make a phone call because I realize that's going to push me outside of my comfort zone.
Yeah. I would say, Jay, the comfort in this, I guess, if there is comfort to take away from it, is that we at least know that we're not alone, you and myself and maybe some of the listeners that resonates with. And I know that doesn't make it easier, but it does make something maybe a little bit more clear. You and I are not the villains today in this story. The villain is, exactly. The villain isn't necessarily like ignorance or effort. It's really that tolerance that you mentioned. It's tolerance for comfort, maybe that fake productivity or that avoidance wearing maybe hustle as a costume, so to speak.
Yeah, last week we said some simple but heavy stuff. You don't scale the business, you scale the person.
Yeah, it's true. The first 90 days where we're at right now and getting kind of started with or where that either becomes real or gets exposed as talk. And because Q1 doesn't test your goals, it really tests, I think, the identity that you're hoping to establish for yourself. So it tests that commitment to that change that you're hoping to make.
Yeah. This reminds me of something that Dan Martell talks about. I don't know if our listeners have heard that name around. He's a serial entrepreneur. He does a lot of stuff. And he's a big influence in the TikTok space and YouTube and things like that. He says it's not the size of the goal that matters. It's the size of the identity shift. I love that.
Yeah, no, I like that one a lot. I follow him a little bit. I know you talk about him on a pretty regular basis, but that's a good line. That's one that really sticks, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I really liked it because I feel like winners don't operate from goals so much as they really tend to be obsessed with systems, identity, and standards. The processes, if you will. Goals are great because they point the direction, but systems are actually what create the results.
Yeah, I think that's true. If I could add to that, I would probably say that the standards are kind of the things that you sprinkle in along the way that they probably help you decide what it is that you will tolerate, what it is you're going to put up with or not. And ultimately, they'll help you determine if you're going to reach your goal, and if so, probably how quickly you're going to reach your goal. Look, I would tell you too, this makes me think about one of my favorite books. I'm sure you've read it. You've read a few more books than I have, I think, throughout your time. Atomic Habits by James Clear. Are you familiar with that one?
Great book. Yep.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. It's one of my all-time favorites. If you haven't read it, I would highly recommend it. James Clear uses an example in a book of smoking or quitting smoking. And he talks about really using identity and breaking it down to kind of like a really almost like stupid, simple way of kind of talking to yourself and establishing a different identity and how to overcome that. So in that part of the book, he talks about the difference between someone saying, quote unquote, trying to quit smoking and someone saying, I don't smoke. Those two statements are really totally different identities. And they, I think, produce totally different outcomes for yourself.
Yeah. And kind of to riff off of that a little bit, you're either negotiating with this aspect that I'm trying to quit smoking is a internal struggle. So I haven't landed on this thing of this new identity yet. And so, yeah, you're either still negotiating or you're not. I love that second phrase. I don't smoke. It's a solid, sound commitment.
Exactly. Yeah. It becomes who you are as opposed to who you want to be. And I think when you say I'm trying to, or I want to, whatever, variation of that phrase you want to come up with, really what you're doing is you're leaving the door at least cracked open, if not wide open. You're protecting the old identity that you had, or maybe even still the current identity that you have. You're tolerating the potential to smoke again, to fall back into those comfortable old bad habits. But when someone says, I don't smoke, or I am the person that I'm trying to become, there is no fight. There is no going back. So that willpower that you need to get up and go to the gym, like most people are talking about these days, right? January 1st, those warriors, that's something that you really almost don't even need anymore. You don't need that extra motivation. It's already decided for yourself. You are that person.
Yeah. Pressure doesn't even create the same conflict. Another thing that Dan Martell says that I love is that social scientists, psychologists, psychiatrists are doing a lot of research just on the human experience. And they've said that the highest form of intelligence is what is called metacognition. It's the ability to watch yourself think. And when you observe yourself and you go, oh, I'm trying to quit smoking, you can observe it and you can observe the conflict, but also observe yourself when you say, I don't smoke. This is good stuff, Fitz.
Yeah, it's a good one. Those are some big words. There's SAT words, I think there, Jay.
That's
so
right.
You're a little above my head. I'm going to have to Google that later and figure out what exactly that meant. But I'm sure there's some listeners out there that kept up with it. But look, it's funny to me how much the personal side impacts the business side, or they go hand in hand. They're one and the same, and they're really no different. So if you say, I'm trying to be more disciplined in your personal life, it applies there too. I'm trying to lead better is the same kind of example of that. You're still negotiating at that point. I am a good leader is a better way of saying it. That identity removes friction. And what we mentioned earlier, we're in Q1, and Q1 is going to expose which identity you're actually operating from. I think that's a really important thing to be reminding yourself of on a daily basis at this point.
Yeah, and this is really why people can quietly lose the year, maybe without even knowing it at times. We can get caught in the minutia of life. A lot of us end up adding goals without subtracting behaviors. Silly example is, I'm going to lose 50 pounds this year, but I don't actually get a gym membership, right? My behavior stays with me sitting on the couch eating Cheetos instead of getting in the car and driving to the gym.
Yeah, it's always the I'll get to it tomorrow kind of mindset, right? There's no better time than the present. So it's exactly right. So I think too many people want that growth without doing anything about it or without giving anything up. Unfortunately, that big bad February is waiting right around the corner for them, and it shows up banging on the door. And before they know it, it's saying, cool story, but who are you really? And that's a tough question to answer.
Yeah, some honesty, some reflection as early as the second month of the year. And then there it is. That's all too common. Quiet failure by February. It's not all doom and gloom though, right? I mean, not everyone fails by February, Fitz. What is a practical piece of advice that we can give the listeners to help avoid that February failure?
Great question. And you're right. It's not all doom and gloom. I think that there's plenty of people out there that set these great goals for themselves and they go run them down. So there's definitely the right way to do it. We're talking a lot about identity and identifying what needs to change in order to reach your goals is, I think, probably the easy part. The hard part for many of us, though, is admitting it out loud and sticking with those changes. I like to use 3 very simple questions for myself. Okay. 1, to hit this outcome, I no longer tolerate blank. Okay. Whatever that blank is. So use the 50 pounds, for example, and the Cheeto story, right? Sitting on the couch with the Cheeto. So to hit the outcome of losing 50 pounds, I no longer tolerate the midnight snacking. right? That's just not who I am anymore. So that's question number one. What do I no longer tolerate? Question number two, to hit this outcome, I always blank. I always do X. I always think this way. I always do whatever. So I want to lose 50 pounds to hit this outcome. I always make a healthy decision when it comes to the added sides on my meals, whatever it might be, right? Something along those lines. I always go to the gym Monday through Friday in the morning, whatever it might be there. And then question number three, if this is still true in March, for example, starting in February, I own it, right? I'm responsible for a lack of change. Again, the man in the mirror is a phrase that we're all familiar with. And if nothing changes, there's only one person responsible for it. So kind of summarize those questions, Jay, right? To hit this outcome, I no longer tolerate blank. To hit this outcome, I always blank. And if where I am today is still true in March or whatever period of time in the future, then I have to own it. I can't summarize it any better than that.
Yeah. Those are good. Simple and easy to remember.
Absolutely. And now I think the key is, well, I should say it isn't the questions really themselves. It's more how you answer them. I probably should say that's obvious, but the three pieces of advice for our listeners there in how you answer them is, one, I say this a lot, but write your answers down. And I think when you start writing things down and you put them on paper, they become real and you can't ignore them. You have to stare them in the eye, so to speak, right? Two, absolutely no fluff. Don't sugarcoat things. We can lie to ourselves on a pretty regular basis. And three is kind of almost redundant and repeating number two, but no.
Yeah.
Do not lie to yourself. You can do that all you want, but the truth will absolutely hunt you down. It's going to find you eventually.
Yeah. Having you share those things, I even thought, and maybe our listeners think this too, yeah, but Fitz, my situation's different.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm guilty of trying to convince myself of that too at times. If you really want to convince yourself of that, then it will be for a period of time. But as the old saying goes, same different toilet, right? It's going to be a different opportunity to sit on a different toilet, but it's going to fill up the exact same way. There's no doubt about that. So we're all guilty of lying to ourselves, Jay, and I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to be different. I'm going to do all of those things. But until we actually stare this change in the face and say, these are the things that I'm lacking in, these are the areas I need to improve in, and this is how I'm going to make those improvements, it's not going to happen. So again, there are a lot of people that have walked down these paths in front of us and done these changes or made these changes rather. And it's not easy. We know that, right? It takes commitment. It takes time. It takes effort, and it doesn't happen overnight, like we're saying. So you can take one of two choices: the easy road, the comfortable road, and continue to do the same things you're doing now, or you can make the commitment that you are a different person, you are a different leader, you are a different business, and we're going to do things differently to reach the goals that we wrote down on paper and set out to change. Or you can end up with the same different toilet.
Yeah. One of the things that I like to tell myself is I want to be embarrassed of who I was 6 months ago, every 6 months. And I don't use embarrassment as a shameful or a disparaging word. It's not negative to me. It's actually positive. I want there to be a little bit of cringe when I go, how did I lead 6 months ago? Or what were the decisions I was making 6 months ago? Because I want to be able to look back and see how far I've come. I think a lot of people can get misled by even our culture right now in America says you're perfect just the way you are. I laugh at, high school yearbooks never change. That's the dumbest thing to write in a yearbook. Like, no, you better not be the same person when we show up to our 10-year reunion, right? The joke, people that peaked in high school, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's super important to pay attention to some of the words you use and allow some of them that maybe in 2025 you viewed as negative. Let them be positive words. Let them be encouraging to you.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've covered a lot of ground today. So why don't we wrap it up with a final thought here, Fitz? I'm curious to see if you're on the same page as me here because, marketer and sales guy, we're always thinking the same, finishing each other's sentences, right? Well, let's see if you can finish my sentence. If you as an owner or leader in your business refuse to change or subtract one thing this week.
Oh, I think that's an easy one. Stop pretending that this year is going to be any different than last. Is that about what you were going to say?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, maybe not exactly how I would have said it, but you got the sentiment, right? So if you stuck with us this far, I hope you got a couple of takeaways. Goals are great, but they won't save you. Motivation is important, but it can't be the only thing that carries you. Standards and identity will be what save you when you need it most. So remember, Q1 is always watching.
Yeah, well said, sir. So look, guys, thanks for tuning in and sticking with us throughout the show today. And we hope you've enjoyed it and gotten a nugget or two out of this. If you did, we always appreciate you ringing the bell and liking and subscribing, letting your friends, colleagues know where we are and how to find us. If you didn't, we would really appreciate you keeping it to yourselves. Jay, as always, it's a pleasure, sir.
Yeah, that's right. Likewise. We'll see you next time on the Fitz and Franson Show.
Happy hunting, everybody.